All right, good evening and welcome to tonight's council workshop. There will be a department update from Caldwell Executive Airport Director of Aviation, Scott Swanson. Welcome, Scott, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts on tonight's workshop.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you for having me today. It's, Scott Swanson, Director of Aviation for the City of Caldwell. And I'm going to present today just a few numbers and then a diagram dictating where everything that's being built currently on the airport is located. And then after that, we can just roll right into questions if there are any. All right, so this information comes from the runway stats ADS-B antenna tracking system that we installed middle of summer last year. And what that does is essentially the aircraft that do have the ADS-B systems for tracking or automatic dependent broadcast services is that it takes a blip of whether that aircraft's taking off, landing, doing a go-around, you know, any action that an aircraft can take that's going to mitigate somebody on the ground taking off at that time is considered, you know, an operation at that point. So these numbers are going to be slightly lower than what's actually occurring because not everybody on the airport has the ADS-B systems in their aircraft. That is that. So from 1 June of 2025 to 31 December of 2025, that 6-month period, we had a total of 85,456 operations. And that's a combination of the helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft. So the airplanes on that, that's going to include multi-engine as well, but that's 52,976. And then on helicopters in total for this last 6 months, we have 32,349. And I talked a little at the board meeting last week, but what these numbers also told me is that the most popular day or the most congested time of the week and day to fly on Caldwell Executive Airport right now is 11 a.m. on Wednesdays. That is the most traffic off of that. All right, so we will go to this slide. So this is just an overview of the Caldwell Executive Airport. North is up. And we'll just kind of look at this here. So we're going to start in the lower right-hand corner on this screen, and you're going to start seeing some green dots popping up down on the bottom there. So this is a development that's going in on the far southeast side of the airport, multiple hangars, total right around 48,000 square feet in that area is being built right now. After that, I did put these yellow dots kind of more toward the center there. So that is indicating the strip mall for small businesses that is going in adjacent to airport property where the old pipe company used to be. So that is not airport property. It is personally owned by United Metals. And they are redeveloping that into a small strip mall for businesses. The dots coming up in the center of the screen, mostly right there, that is the old Skydown drop zone. And so that now is being developed into 12 hangar spots that are going up right now, and a few of them is sold off, and the rest of them will continue to be available throughout the rest of the year. That next dot, so the former owner of Skydown Skydiving, he is going to be building a hangar in the location to where I'm sure everybody knows is there's an old water truck that's been sitting there for probably 9 years. That is not functional, so this build out is going to get all that stuff out of the way because there's a bunch of junk and the like old fallen down gazebo, the water truck, and also a plane body that are sitting out there. So that's going to clean up that entire area. That square, that is the new building that went in on the former property of Midfield Aviation, and that is a 10,000 square foot hangar that individual built right there. And then also an update on here from, you know, the information I've given. So Midfield Aviation itself and its former owner, Joe Dory, they have sold Midfield Aviation to a new owner. I do not have his name at the time, but it's 2 individuals. Still planning, they just did a fuel order last week to get more fuel supplied to the tank. So there will still be 100 low lead fuel, or the fuel that piston aircraft need to utilize will be available still at Midfield Aviation. The 2 squares going up right there, we have one that's a private hangar that's going to sit right behind the Aero Builders building next to a Warhawk hangar, and there's some space that was available. Obviously, depending on city building and engineering departments, whether or not that's gonna work and fit is, I'm pretty sure that one's good to go because that one is also going vertical. The large green square is the dictating where Silverhawk is currently in development of the new FBO slash hangar slash restaurant and all that stuff. And I've been letting people know with concurrence from the owners of Silverhawk that that restaurant will be available and open come late spring of 2027. The next three squares on the top left side of the screen there, that is from the build out where the where the current airport beacon tower is located with the rotating light on it. There are now 6, I have 5 depicted, but there are 6 hangars in that location now, kind of making that work where nobody thought anything could get there. We're still working on that project, but it is coming closer to completion. The large box large 2 boxes on the north side adjacent to Linden Road, that is going to be Sprint Box new building that they have signed lease paperwork, development agreements into. And then on the opposite side of the Hubler building, that is where the Vertical Ventures building is going into. So, and that is all I have depicted on things that are permitted and going vertical at this time or able to go vertical at this time. Outside of the Sprint Box building, which is still in preliminary phase of roundtable discussions and before they do design submissions. And that is what I have on that. And then that is really the update I have at this point for the last 6 months, but I do stand here for questions anybody may have.
Thank you, by the way, are there any questions from council for Scott? I see
Mr.
got
Mayor.
one light on already. Go ahead, Councilor Stoddard.
Scott, on the agreement with Skyhawk on the restaurant and the other 2 buildings?
Yes, the agreement with Silverhawk.
Yeah, so, I'm
Yes,
sorry,
sir.
Silverhawk. I had asked Oscar to give me a copy of that. The biggest concern I have about that, the language in there, it doesn't say in operations after that period of time that they're supposed to complete the construction. So, restaurants are awful expensive to equip.
Yes.
The stoves and the vents and all that stuff. And they could actually build a building, but not have it in operation. And that's one of the key things we need out there is that restaurant in operation. So I don't think we can go back and probably change the language, but like I say, maybe somebody overlooked that, but I think it should have said operated by that certain date.
I would not disagree with the counselor on that. I think that type of verbiage being added into development agreements would protect the city more on what ends up or not happening with the development.
Yeah.
Yes,
You see my point though, because they can build a building, but if they don't have the money to put all the equipment in, it's not going to be operational.
Correct. Yes, there is no word in there that says operational restaurant.
Yeah.
It just says
So I
restaurant.
don't know, Oscar, you want to comment on that? It's a done deal in sign, so I guess we can't do anything about it, but it could sit there for 10 years and not be operated.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Stoddick, I really don't have any further to comment on that. This is
Okay.
a lease that was there, but we can certainly mark it with the director with Director Swanson in the future that will make sure that language is included in
So it's your understanding that it will be in operation after that time?
Yes, Counselor. I am under the understanding that by the spring of '27, there's going to be an open restaurant on the airport. I think maybe it just might be my expectation of people, but an agreement through writing, I read the term as a restaurant is a restaurant. I would not have thought at the time to put an operational restaurant, but words do have meaning.
You have to forgive my prior years with potato contracts, so that's why I brought it up. Anyway, the other thing I want to mention is, is there any plans for the north side as far as a restaurant or a Pizza Hut or Idaho Pizza, or is there any land available there that you could build one where it doesn't interfere with airplane operations?
The only area the city owns land where that would not affect airplane operation at this point on the airport would be on the other side of Linden. However, once if a runway extends across Linden at some point in the future, then it would directly affect airport operations. And it would be very hard pressed to get approval for a standalone restaurant with no other attributes toward the airport approved and built. I don't see it happening, and I also don't see a need for it as far as in that area using airport property. I would say if the city wanted to, look into bringing restaurants to an area that is owned by the city for the airport specifically, there are processes we can do to release land to make it available to put those things on. However, I will say it is also a 14 to 18-month process on doing that.
So there's nothing north of the Hubble terminal that can't be used for hangars, but could be used for, say, a Pizza Hut or Idaho Pizza or anything? Nothing?
Not that I know of, Counselor.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Scott, you've been emailing us some other details as well. Can you just give us a synopsis of the electrical situation out there at the airport and tell us what we need to know, especially in regard to costs?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Williams, absolutely. I will say up front that the costs on this come from a absolute miscommunication on my part and not asking the right questions. When Idaho Power had meetings with myself and other members of city staff on this project, I was under the impression that all work up to a meter pack at the end of each hangar was going to be $80,000 if city employees did the trenching for the work that Idaho Power does. However, as I've dug more into how the electrical systems work and who can and cannot do things with electrical systems, is that Idaho Power's cost estimate only takes power from outside the airport to the transformers that they're going to install. The additional work that will be required on top of that will be coming from the transformer to a meter pack. So we're going to have 8 transformers placed on the ground in those areas, and then we'll have ideally meter packs on each end of the hangar. I talked with Bob Nelson on this, the Caldwell Superintendent Electrical, and he said the expectation from how he sees it is you could, $160,000 would take care of all of that. That was a cost that I was a little flabbergasted by because I thought we were getting it for 80. However, that is only to the transformers. What I did verify, though, with Bob is that as those transformers go in, there is no need to disconnect the current power as it sits, and that we should, obviously, this will be a discussion with Idaho Power as far as leaving what's available on now until at such point that everybody in that area is hooked up to their own meter and has their own panel. But that is also something that I will need to clarify directly with Idaho Power and our electrical team here in the city.
Mr. Mayor, may I follow
Of course, Councilor Williams, go ahead.
up? I just want to be sure we're covered on costs. What part of that will be the city's responsibility? And is Ray Lynn in conversations with you so that if we know where the money's coming from, Scott? We've got to get this done, but now we're into it a lot more than we thought we would be, so
Yes.
I want to be sure all the people are involved that need to be.
I think it depends where the council wants to go with it. My recommendation from the get-go on this has been that the city will allocate funds to pay for everything done up to the meter pack on the hangar. And then after that, because they're all privately owned, it would be the hangar owner's responsibility to go in and then hook up to their individual meter and then get a panel put into their hangar so that way everybody has the power that they need and nobody's sharing anymore. And that's been my recommendation because I feel that's just the right thing to do. However, I have not talked to anybody else that agrees with me on that. As far as how developments have gone on the airport historically is everything has been at the expense of the developer. And so a lot of individuals that have on the east side of the airport where a lot of the newer hangars are, and they had to bring in all their own power, water, sewer, and gas, they are adamantly against putting any money from the city toward this project. And then I think really at the end of the day, I looked at it as more of like, an ethical choice of, the expectation of being in a hangar on the airport is that I'm going to have power access and everything else that's been in place for so long. And I just feel it's prudent that the city would do that. However, I am not the body. I can only recommend, and then council and the mayor at the end of the day will decide what's best for the city at that point, and whether we pay up to the meter or don't pay anything at all or pay for the whole thing.
Mr.
Anyone
Mayor,
else?
I have a follow-up
Councilor
question.
Stoddard, go ahead.
So, at one of the meetings that we're at, Councilor Allgood was asking you the question about how much this was gonna cost the city, and at that time, you estimated around $40,000.
Say $80,000, Councilor, was the,
Because he was questioning, is that all it's gonna be, and you said yes. So
Yeah,
what is it up to now?
so for us right now, what we have allocated to the work to perform is $45,000. What's happened at this point is Idaho Power's only gotten a check, so no work has been done at this point. But with that $45,000 worth of work, it'll put us in progress toward getting the right things done with the electrical systems out there. However, I was under the impression, and again, complete misunderstanding on my part, I thought the entire system outside of hooking up to individual hangars was going to be $80,000. And that is not the case.
So what's the number then?
So the number now would be 210 in total. So, because from what I've been told is that when you go from a transformer to a meter pack system, the size needed for the airport, you're looking at a minimum of $20,000 for each one of those.
Was that discussed with the board at all, how much it was gonna be?
It was at that $80,000 level, yes, and then there was a little miscommunication on that point also as far as just kind of the patience aspect. And then, I have a reasoning for, my lack of patience on it, but it was not agreed upon as a group at that point. Like my biggest concern every night is that something's gonna flip in one of those hangars and the whole set's gonna burn down.
So Mrs. North, are you gonna pull the rabbit out of the hat here, or what are we gonna do?
So during 2026 budget preparation and budget process, we budgeted a total of $200,000 for the airport for capital improvement projects. $100,000 from the airport fund to use fund balance, and $100,000 from the capital fund, which is other departments also use that, such as parks and cemetery, and it's for essentially paid with property taxes as well, is what the capital fund is funded from. So right now, the Idaho Power, the $45,000 that we have paid has come from the capital fund. So there's about 65 left in that, or, sorry, 55 left in that. And then if council decides to go further with this project, and at the additional 210, we'll first use the budget that we have available, and so it'll be an additional 10,000 above what we have available. So my recommendation would be that would come back to council if that's the direction that,
Okay. Well, like I say, my only point is that we as a council understood it was whether it's a 40 or 80, and that was gonna be it.
And I was under that impression also, Counselor, and that was a wrong impression.
Any other questions from council? We'll make sure we get a updated set of numbers for you, and then we'll go from there. Thank you, Scott, for the update on the airport. Appreciate you coming out tonight. And this will conclude tonight's workshop, and we'll be starting the council meeting at 6 p.m., so in about 10 minutes. Thank you.